Namaste, guys. ChristianRLong, life enhancement consultant. I almost forgot what I do as a profession. Hope you're having a beautiful, phenomenal, amazing Monday evening. It's about 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time here in Denver, Colorado. And guess what? It's snowing again. This is the most snow. No, I'm gonna say this is the most snow I can remember ever getting back to back to back to back in Denver, right? Which is interesting because typically when it snows, because the altitude is so high and the sun comes out almost immediately in the mornings, most of the snow is always melted, but we're going on our third day and it's still rocking out pretty hard here. But I want to jump on real quick, just finish a day of my spiritual practice, healing practice, and I want to jump on real quick and share not one, but two different stories that I think you guys might get some benefit out of. As you guys know, we do these streams on energy healing, meditation, and practical spirituality for the purpose of helping you become a better human being and a stronger connection to your higher self. Now, I was thinking, I don't know why these stories are sticking to my head at the same time, because it didn't even really happen at the same time. But how many of you have been either interested in hypnotherapy or have been hypnotized at some point in your life? A lot of people have been hypnotized as I kind of ran into it. So I remember when I was 15 years old, I was a freshman in high school. I think I was a freshman in high school. And for those of you who do not know, I actually dropped out of high school my freshman year, worked for 2 years, like 70 hours a week, and then I took a test, tested out, and then went to a private college. That's how you do it. Short change and shortcut the system. So when my school had an event in the evening of hiring this hypnotherapist, which for some odd reason, 25 years later, I can still remember this guy's name, Russ Burgess. I don't know why. I have no association to a Russ or a Burgess at that point in my life, and pretty much anyone. I've only met one other Russ. He was my, you can't really say my roommate, but he was in the room next to me when I was at Maharishi University of Management in Fairfield, Iowa. Very, very interesting guy. Came from a wealthy family, was always talking about how Jewish he was, and the guy was one of the most neurotic, obsessive compulsive people I had ever met in my life. I think ever. Not just that point in my life, but at any point before and after that time. And he was in his mid-40s. Very interesting guy, very, very sweet guy, but a lot of psychological issues. And he was very open about it. He let everybody know how neurotic he was, how obsessive compulsive he was. He was always cleaning his hands. And he had been a TM teacher for years, like at least a decade. Super interesting guy. So that's the only other Russ that I've ever met that I can think of in my life. I must know another Russ or Russell or something. But anyways, so this hypnotist was hired by my high school to come in the evening, and it was kind of like students and parents and friends of the parents and students were coming in to see this guy hypnotize everybody or a group of people in the audience. And there was probably maybe 100 or so people that were in the auditorium at the time. And this guy was in his late 50s, been doing hypnotherapy for about 20 years. And I'd always been fascinated with the ability to lull somebody to sleep into a receptive state just by your speech. And I was like, this has got to be fake. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're telling me this guy's going to make us all pretend that we're ducks or, take our clothes off or all these other things. Of course, Christian, you had to go there. What have you. But he said something interesting in his little preparatory talk before hypnotizing people. He says, people cannot be hypnotized and then go against their values. So if you have a value of not being nude in public, even if you're hypnotized, the likelihood of the hypnotherapist hypnotizing you to take off your clothes is very unlikely. So he asked for volunteers in the audience. And of course, me being a person that wants to be in the arena of life versus sitting as a spectator of life, I raised my hand, rushed up on stage with I think maybe 10 other people. And he did whatever he did. He did whatever his ninja power is of putting us all into a receptive state, hypnotizing us. And then he had different people do different things. And the only thing that I can actually remember when I was quote unquote hypnotized is there was this very large woman next to me, probably in her early 30s. And he was talking about pretend or right now you're having an intimate moment with a teddy bear or something like that. And I remember I was hugging this woman. She had a big fluffy sweater on, and I was hugging this woman with both arms and really getting after it. And I was having like this intimate moment pretending that this large woman was a large teddy bear. And it was weird. It was a weird state of consciousness because I was conscious of what was going on, but I was fine with it, and I was really engaged in the process of connecting with this person, with this other soul to soul connection. And the reason I was bringing up or thinking of hypnosis is one of the key factors in helping somebody have a miraculous healing in their life is them to be open and conductive and receptive, not to the practitioner necessarily, and not even to the healing modality that the person has signed up for, paid for, what have you, but is the person open and receptive enough to them being healed? Eric, I'm a namaste, a long time, man. Are they open and receptive enough for them to be healed? Which is a big, big factor, right? Because if you go to somebody, a hypnotherapist, a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, a healer, a coach, and you are unwilling to be open and receptive to their suggestions, then guess what? The healing rate, the transformational rate is going to be very, very slow, if at all, right? Because I've noticed in my experience of doing this work for 16 years that there are people who are not open and receptive to being transformed. They want to stay stuck because it gives them validation, it gives them self-pity, it gives them excuses and rationalizations as to why they don't have to do anything to be empowered themselves to move their lives forward. So I think hypnotherapy is an excellent tool to, David, namaste, a long time, man, to get people in a state of receptivity. So when commands or instructions are given by the therapist, it bypasses the conscious mind and it goes into the subconscious mind, which influences people more than they are aware of. That's why it's called the subconscious mind. You would be amazed at how many programs are running in the background of your life that are literally dictating what you do and what you don't do, who you hang out with, who you don't hang out with, how you spend your money, how you lose your money, what you read, what you don't read, if you read at all, right? The subconscious mind is constantly influencing us. And Grandmaster Choa Koksui talks about without awareness, there's no inner transformation. And awareness is nothing more than being more conscious of what is in the subconscious mind, right? Which is really difficult, challenging work for the majority of us. So when you become conscious of subconscious programs, guess what? You can now remove those programs consciously, and now you can consciously create better, more empowering programs in your life. It's really quite profound when you think about it. So I remember after he was done taking the quote-unquote magic spell off of all of us on stage, I felt rejuvenated, regenerated. I felt relaxed. I felt good about the experience. And I was always like, so this is what hypnotherapy is like. I wonder if I should get hypnotherapy myself. But because I didn't have enough of influences in my life, I never went forward either learning it for myself or learning it to be a practitioner and applying it in other people and becoming a hypnotherapist, right? My goal was not to be a hypnotherapist, or path was not to be a hypnotherapist. My goal was to be a healer, a pranic healer, an arhatic yogi, and to spread the teachings of Grandmaster Choa Koksui. But it was a great, great experience. And that experience happened about 4 years before I even learned about meditation and spirituality. So that experience is when I was 15, and then I learned meditation when I was 19, or when my body was 19. So fast forwarding a few more years, I think this actually might have been right around the same time I learned meditation. Right around the same time. So in Spencer, Massachusetts, so I'm from Massachusetts. I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is Western Mass. In Spencer, Massachusetts, there is a world-famous monastery called the Trappist Monastery where they house the Trappist monks. And what's fascinating about the Trappist monks is, in general, they are silent most of the time, but all of the monks, all of the monasteries, the Trappist monasteries, focus on a certain product that they sell to sustain the monastery. So some of the Trappist monks sell beer. I think some of them sell maple syrup. And the monastery that I went to in Spencer, Massachusetts, sold jam. That was their quote-unquote cottage industry. But the cool thing about this jam is that it was made with so much consciousness and awareness and stillness that I remember the very first time I tasted Trappist jam, which they used to sell at Whole Foods. I don't know if they sell it at Whole Foods nationwide anymore, but they definitely sold it. I saw Trappist jams in other Whole Foods, but I can almost guarantee you if there is a Whole Foods within an hour radius of Spencer, Massachusetts, that Whole Foods will definitely sell Trappist jams. It is so delicious, so wonderful, so amazing. I can't even put in words how good it is. I remember the first time I had it was the strawberry rhubarb, and I didn't even put it on a piece of bread. I just had a spoon, and I dipped it into their little jar, put it in my mouth, put the spoon down, and went into bliss right then and there, just eating the jam. So I had the forethought that something told me to go on a retreat, to go on a silent retreat, and I looked for silent retreats within the area, and the only place I could find was this Trappist monastery in Spencer, Massachusetts, that it was free, and they had maybe 4 or 5 rooms available to the public that they could rent for free. You could give a donation, but the catch was you had to wait a year in advance, or you had to book it a year in advance. So somehow, some way, I booked a slot at a monastery, a silent monastery in Spencer, Massachusetts, which was about an hour from my house, before I was ever even meditating. And then I learned meditation in June of 1999, and then I ended up going to the Trappist monastery in July of 99. And I remember going there, and as soon as I walked on the property, it was so still. It's in the beautiful rolling hills in western Massachusetts, and there's the really tall grass, and there was a gentle breeze blowing in the wind, and it was moving the grass around, and all you could hear was a gentle breeze throughout this giant property. You didn't hear anything else. No vehicles, no dogs, no conversations happening, no chanting, nothing. That only happened really early in the morning or around 6 or 6:30 at night. But during the day, nothing. Super, super quiet. And they would give you 1 hour per day. If you were a visitor or a guest, they would give you 1 hour per day to have conversations. But for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, no talking at all. But it was like silence was impregnated into every blade of grass, every tree, every flower, every space and nook and cranny of the giant property. And I remember having moments when I would go outside, and every day I was there, it was beautiful. The weather was magical. And I would just sit in this little bench that was designed by the monks. And I would just sit in this little tiny bench, and I would just stare off into space and just look at the rolling hills of New England. this New England territory. And I just remember going, wow, I'm so grateful to be part of this experience that most people never get to experience. And here I am at 19, sitting in this monastery setting. And it was interesting because the other people that had booked their spot a year in advance, they were in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. There was no teenagers, no one in their 20s, no one in their 30s, no one in their 40s. The youngest person that I met on my retreat was in their late 50s. And two of them were college professors. And they said, whenever we get a chance to go in silence, to go into retreat, to become still, we take advantage of it. And this is something that we had been doing for a number of years, year after year after year. And it was really great spending time with them and talking with them for that hour until they hit a little gong on the property, and then everyone kind of goes back to their room. And there's nothing going on in the rooms. It's a bed, a desk, a chair, and a lamp. That's it. So you either read the Bible, you read a book that you brought, you journal, or you sit and you stare off into space. And you could also walk the property as well. But there was really nothing you could do in this space other than go within. And that's why it's called a retreat, right? You're retreating within instead of retreating going, like running from something. Instead of you're running within yourself. And I'll never forget that experience. It was one of the most joyful, blissful, wonderful experiences I've ever had in my life. And in the evenings, when we went to go into the main area to have dinner, and we never ate with the monks because the monks had their own routine and they were always in silence, right? So you don't want to have the contrast of energy of people who are used to chatting and mixing it up, and then people who are in silence all day long, all week long, all month long, all year long, for decades, right? Because these people live there and live and work and everything. That's their existence. So they had all the jams that they make right there in a certain setting that they only put out in the dinner time. And I was like, I'd go and I would be shoveling jam into my mouth before they would come back and take the little jam. I was like, this is amazing. They had blueberry jam, strawberry rhubarb jam. They had marmalade jam. I was just whatever I could shove in my mouth because it was so good. It just was like, I don't know, divine nectar. I was super grateful for that experience. And it's interesting because the hypnotherapist who hypnotized me, I'm sure he's no longer in the body 25 years ago when he was old then. And then the gentlemen that I met at the retreat, I'm sure they are no longer in the body as well. And it just gives me a greater appreciation of how we come into this world, we live for a short period of time, and then we leave this world. And it's like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to learn? What are we going to experience? And looking over my life, my birthday is going to be June 3rd this year. My body will be turning 40. I expect something nice from each and every one of you. I look at my life and I've lived a very full, very interesting life. I haven't traveled the world yet. I've traveled to different parts of the world, but one of my objectives is to travel around the world and experience more things because it's something I've always wanted to do. But when it comes to my spiritual life and my spiritual practice and my healing practice and healing myself and going into my own subconscious mind and questioning my thoughts and my beliefs and developing certain abilities, I'm very, very grateful for the experiences that I've had in this incarnation. True, it's never ending. You can always grow more. You can always love more. You can always forgive more. You can always learn more, without a doubt. But looking at my life up to this point, I'm very, very grateful for all the gifts and blessings and people that have come in and out of it. Some people, I'm very, very sad that they're not in my life currently. Other people, I can't really think of anyone in my life that I'm like, ugh, why are they in my life? I can't really think of anyone like that, but there are definitely a few people in my life that I'm very saddened that they are not in my life in the same capacity. But it is what it is. And if karma is what karma is, then I will reconnect with these individuals. Yana says, doing pranic healing to food, it gives a different taste, or doing prayer to food too. Good point. Good point. So Yana's talking when you have food, it's impregnated with the energy of its environment and the people preparing the food. So if I'm a chef, right, and I'm making food, and I'm stressed out, I'm angry, I'm bitter, I'm having financial challenges, I'm having arguments at home, my physical health isn't doing so well, and I'm making food, the state of the energy that I'm in is what goes into the food. So it's very important to clean your food energetically before you eat it. So think about this. You have Trappist monks who are in meditation and silence all day long with their consciousness, their mindfulness and awareness making jam. What do you think the vibration of the jam is going to be? Especially if you're eating it at the property that they make it at. It's going to be pretty amazing, right? So one of my mentors many years ago, he was talking to me about this experiment that, coffee, right? Most people, not all people, but when they make coffee, they put cream and sugar in it, right? Partly because it's acidic and people don't like the acidic taste in their tongue, on their mouth. Some people love it. Some people like their coffee black. The blacker the better, right? So he did an experiment. And what he did is cleaned the acidic energy from the coffee and then blessed it with divine sweetness. He said you couldn't tell the difference between coffee that had cream and sugar and coffee that had the acidic energy removed and blessing it with divine sweetness. Cool, right? Another experiment, my mentor in those days was always experimenting with me, always experimenting with me. And so he says he had 2 bottles of water and he put them on his counter at his house. And he says, scan this water, what do you feel? And then scan this water, and then what do you feel? Simple enough experiment, right? So I was scanning the water, and I was like, okay, well, this feels very sharp, very hot, very strong energy. And I scanned the other water, and I said, this water, for some reason, it seems very familiar. It seems very cool. And then as I'm scanning it, my heart seems to become super, super activated, and I'm not sure why. And he goes, very good. The first water that you scanned was the energy of a Qigong master who is very yang. Right? Very yang. And the second water that you said was familiar, that was cooling and was activating your heart, is actually water that was blessed by Grandmaster Choa. Well, if I'm a disciple of Grandmaster Choa, I'm more familiar with his energy and I resonate with his energy more than, say, another master or teacher from another school. Interesting, right? So those little experiments of how you can change liquids and change food so it's better for you. It's a form of alchemy, turning lead into gold. So I hope you guys enjoyed these 2 stories for this evening. The first story, first and only time I was hypnotized by a hypnotherapist, because we were always being hypnotized. It's not a conspiracy theory. It is our society. Our society is designed to direct us. If we are not conscious, society will be our consciousness, and it will direct us what to buy and what not to buy, how to look, how not to look. It's always directing, right? That's the collective thought form of our society. This is the world at large. And then the second story was my very first time having jam with monks, the Trappist monks in Spencer, Massachusetts. If you've never been to Spencer, Massachusetts, I highly recommend it. This is 25 years ago, and I don't think I've actually been back to Spencer, Massachusetts since that time. So who knows? They could have sold the monastery. I doubt it, but they could have sold the monastery and built, high rises in that area if they changed the building moratorium. Who knows? But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you guys for listening and sharing your energy. It's a quiet day here in Denver, Colorado. It's still snowing outside. More and more inches are accumulating as we speak. If I can assist you in your healing process, please let me know. Go to my website, ChristianRLong.com. Super, super easy. It's my name. And you can schedule a distant healing session right then and there. 30 minutes of coaching to get clarity. 30 minutes of healing to remove the blockages to greater clarity and transformation in that particular area of your life. Physical healing, emotional healing, financial healing, relationship healing, and even spiritual healing. Because ultimately, all healing is healing of the soul. All healing is healing of the soul. And I did a post earlier today that one of the masters in pranic healing said gave a beautiful definition to healing, that healing is eliminating anything that is not wholesome. Healing is eliminating anything that is not wholesome. I was like, mind blown. It is amazing. So that being said, I wish each and every one of you a beautiful, phenomenal Monday evening. I hope you had a great weekend. If I can serve you moving forward, please let me know. And any topics that you would like to see in the future, let me know. We're still going to cover the horror movie and the spiritual movie this week. I'm thinking about the best way of doing it. It was a topic we kind of covered about almost 2.5 years ago. But these topics can, as you grow and evolve, your listening changes. So I could literally, Jillian, I'm going to literally say the exact same thing now that I did 2.5 years ago. And if you've grown and changed as a human being, you're going to hear completely different things. So doesn't matter if we've talked about it 2.5 years ago. So love you guys very, very much. Have a beautiful, phenomenal Monday. Have a beautiful, phenomenal week. And a beautiful, phenomenal life. This is Christian Long, Life Enhancement Consultant. Atma. Namaste. Bye-bye.